Good morning. Welcome to a brand new hour of National Report. We bring you in with a live look at San Francisco, California, courtesy of our Earth Cam. It's going to be just under 70 degrees for the Golden State there. Not too bad. People getting up and moving this time of the morning. Big time difference there from Eastern time. But thank you so much for joining us if you are watching California and all around. We appreciate the time. We'll start with the top stories we're following for you in our National Report rundown.
We begin on Capitol Hill. FBI Director Christopher Wray is testifying before the Senate Judiciary Committee right now. He's expected to be pressed on a number of issues, including the FBI's response to the protests we saw take place outside of Supreme Court justices' homes, also the Hunter Biden laptop scandal, and likening parents to domestic terrorists at school board meetings. We're going to have those highlights from Wray's testimony and bring those to you.
Plus, that announcement was made. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, he announced this, suspending Soros-backed state attorney Andrew Warren, who refused to enforce the state's abortion ban. The governor also says Warren refused to work with police. Again, a story we continue to follow. Leonardo Feldman has this story live from Florida. He's joining us moments away.
And overseas, China firing missiles during military exercises, this near Taiwan. Those drills, of course, follow House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's trip to the region. What further action might China take in retaliation?
And this The Nation morning, the loss of Indiana Congresswoman Jackie Walorski, who tragically died in a car crash. President Biden ordering flags to be flown at half-staff in the memory of the late lawmaker. We continue to remember her. Meantime, Democrat Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia is standing by his decision to support the nearly $700 billion Inflation Reduction Act. But the senator's support drawing backlash from his own state and the coal industry. America's State Coal Association releasing a blistering statement that reads, quote, this legislation is so egregious it leaves those of us that call Senator Manchin a friend shocked and disheartened. The current Schumer-Manchin draft agreement on climate and energy frankly leaves us questioning the motivation and sincerity of Manchin's previous stance and his repeated chant, we must innovate, not eliminate, end quote. Joining us now is West Virginia Attorney General Patrick Morrisey. Good to see you, AG. Thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate you taking the time. I wanted to get you on the line here on this deal, and specifically Senator Manchin. He's got decisions to make for arguably the nation, right? But he also has decisions to make for constituents there in West Virginia.
Sure.
Do you support Senator Manchin's new decision here backing the Inflation Reduction Act and the message it sends to West Virginia?
No, I don't. I think that if you were to draft a bill that would hurt West Virginia really, really hard, and you were to think of all the bad things you could do to our state, to coal mining, and to the price of energy in our state, our ability to be competitive, this is the bill you do. This so disproportionately hurts West Virginia, not only directly in terms of coal and the impact on the taxes that are on the coal industry, which will hurt our state tremendously, it also is going to lead to dramatically spiked power bills. One of the things that I've been working on for many years is to try to ensure that if there's a transition that moves away from coal and moves toward renewables, that you have to be sensitive to the timeline. This bill does the opposite. It doubles down on the Green New Deal and what Biden's been trying to do, to have 40% reduction of carbon emissions by 2030. But it's going to force a shock to the system because all of that movement in a state like West Virginia, which has 85 to 86% coal, is going to be paid by consumers through their power bills. That's utterly unacceptable. This bill puts West Virginia in the crosshairs. It's reprehensible. And I urge the Schumer-Manchin bill to be pulled because it's terrible for our state, bad for our country, but it really has a uniquely negative impact on West Virginia.
I'll go back to something you pointed out, the coal industry here. West Virginia Office of Miners Health, Safety and Training says this: coal mine employment stood at just under 12,000 in 2021, the lowest since 1890. Just looking at that stat there, look, many that are advocating for green energy would see this as a win. But that's a different story in West Virginia for coal miners and families of coal miners and generational coal miners. Talk to me about that.
Well, look, West Virginia still relies heavily on coal. It's an important form of energy, and there's still communities that are heavily dependent on coal. But I think it's important for folks nationally to know is that anytime you try to move so aggressively for this target, and you can question some of the targets and what they're doing, and then you know that certain states are going to bear all the pain, that's a huge issue. Separately, it's important to know that this is happening at the same time that there's going to be a gigantic need for electric power. If you want to have all these new electric vehicles, how do you think that they're going to get charged up? They get charged up by having ready supplies of electricity available, which usually would come through coal. So this doesn't make sense at all. It really attacks our state, but it's also going to hurt the country. It's going to continue to drive inflation. It's obviously going to set up a wave of IRS agents to come invade all the states in the nation, which is bad for the mom and pop small businesses and so many people in our country. And it's just throwing gasoline on the fire to the economy at a time when we really need to relax and make sure that we're not overspending as a country.
Just final thoughts on Senator Manchin, if I could stay on that. The Federal Elections Commission stated that he's raked in $6 million, a little more than $6 million. All of that, except for $65,000 of it coming from other areas than West Virginia. Only $65,000 in donations from his own state of West Virginia. The other $6 million from out of state. Does that concern you? Not necessarily that a lawmaker can or cannot campaign in and around this country, but the fact that maybe would you say he's abandoning some of his constituents with this deal or with donations he's not receiving from West Virginians?
Well, I won't speak to the donations, but I will say that this bill absolutely abandons West Virginia. And once again, you'd be hard-pressed to come up with a bill that hurts the state more than what he's done. And I think Senator Manchin still has a chance to do the right thing, not only to take out a number of the provisions that are really hurting West Virginia in this bill, but to also reduce this excessive spending, which is going to continue to drive inflation, and take off the tax cuts. I know Senator Manchin keeps saying there are no tax increases. That's absolutely false. Coal is going to pay disproportionately as a result of this. The Tax Foundation, that's a bipartisan, an independent group. They've said that coal will be hit harder than any other industry. And then it's followed by, you have utilities, you have construction, and all the things that you need to have a vibrant economy. And so I think this has to get changed, and I'm urging Senator Manchin to do the right thing for the constituents of West Virginia.
Great to have you on and to hear your voice there, West Virginia Attorney General Patrick Morrisey. Good to see you, AG. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We turn now to the state of Florida, where Governor Ron DeSantis is suspending State Attorney Andrew Warren, who has reportedly refused to enforce the state's abortion ban. Correspondent Leonardo Feldman joining us now live from Tampa with more on the governor's announcement. Leo, good morning.
Emma, good morning. That's right. Well, we're here at Hillsborough County's Sheriff's Office, where Governor Ron DeSantis just made that announcement, along with Attorney General Ashley Moody and other sheriffs from across the state. He is suspending Andrew Warren, the state attorney from the 13th Judicial Circuit Court, because he has refused, according to DeSantis, several state laws. And he says he has the right to suspend him, and that is what he is doing. We do know that Andrew Warren in the past has said that he's not going to enforce any of the abortion laws in the state. He actually was part of a nationwide joint statement from elected prosecutors who said, quote, "We decline to use our office's resources to criminalize reproductive health decisions." And it is important to note that Judge Susan Lopez, who was actually here at the announcement, will be replacing Warren. This just minutes after DeSantis made that announcement. Emma?
Leo Feldman in Tampa with the very latest on this. Leo, thank you. Let's bring in our panelists now for the hour. We're joined by former Trump campaign aide Rick Gates, also with us, former Georgia Congressman Jack Kingston, alongside former Lieutenant Governor of New York, Newsmax contributor Betsy McCoy. Panelists, welcome, and thanks so much for coming on today. All right, some big news there, the suspension out of Florida. If we've got our panelists with us, I'd like to go to Rick Gates first. Rick, what are your top-line thoughts?
Well, look, Ron DeSantis has made really good decisions all along throughout the course of his gubernatorial position, and I think this goes along with that. He is in the right to do it. He says that the state attorney is not following the law and not enforcing the law. And DeSantis has time and time again has been in a great position to be able to make very good, strong decisions, and that's why he's being considered as a candidate for 2024.
Yeah, Congressman Kingston, I was wrong. I thought he was going to come and announce he was going on The View. Clearly, it was a lot more serious topic than that. Your thoughts?
You know, I love it when a conservative has power and the guts to use the power. And that's what we're seeing from Ron DeSantis over and over again. As a state's attorney, you cannot pick and choose which laws you like, which ones you don't like, and what you're going to enforce and what you're not going to enforce. What Ron DeSantis has done is set a national example. I hope other governors and other conservatives do the same with a weak-kneed, politically minded state's attorney general or anybody else who's supposed to be prosecuting and enforcing the law.
Betsy, what does this tell you about DeSantis' style of governing?
Well, it tells you, first of all, that he is definitely a national figure. He's likely to be considered a strong contender in 2024 if Donald Trump doesn't run. And I support the decision he made today because state officials, including states' attorneys, cannot pick and choose, as Jack pointed out, which laws to enforce. The irony is that the left wants to deny physicians and other healthcare providers the ability to use their conscience and decline to perform abortions, but they want a conscience clause for law enforcement officials. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, again, and continuing to follow that story there, DeSantis suspending a state attorney. They're not carrying out the laws. We'll see. We'll await to see what that attorney and how that attorney rather responds. It is an indefinite suspension. I will switch over if I can. Just a quick take, Rick Gates, if you're listening, we were speaking to the Attorney General in West Virginia regards to Senator Manchin, the Inflation Reduction Act, the AG, all but saying, hey, this bill is not good for his own home state. Rick.
Yeah, look, I think Joe Manchin has taken a calculated gamble, right? And he is clearly out supporting the natural gas industry, a $6.6 billion pipeline. If you look at the economic stats, you know, between natural gas and coal, you're seeing that they're very close in terms of support, you know, for the overall economy. The natural gas edges the coal mining industry out. It is going to hurt, but it is also going to help West Virginia. No question that, you know, what Patrick Morrissey said about the bill overall hurting the country is absolutely right on point.
Yeah, Jack Kingston, do you think this bill ends up getting the support it needs from Sinema?
All eyes are on Sinema in the state of Arizona right now. I heard from somebody who's in the microchips business yesterday, has 2,000 jobs in Arizona, and says what's happening with this bill and the chips bill is one takes and the other one takes away. It's a bad bill. The combination of them is horrible for jobs in Arizona, and I hope she pays attention to it. The Tax Foundation has a great report on it, but one line that really caught my attention says that it hurts work and investment and disincentivizes productivity. And I think that's a great summary of this whole boondoggle.
All right. Unfortunately, out of time. Panelists, if you could stay with us, we've got some breaking news we are monitoring. Coming up right here on National Report, we will be speaking with the Trump-endorsed Michigan congressional candidate John Gibbs. This comes off his big GOP primary win on Tuesday, so you don't want to miss that. And we are monitoring Brittany Griner's drug case in Russia, where she's reportedly been found guilty of bringing marijuana oil into the country with criminal intent. What might sentencing look like? Still waiting on details for that. Plus, these stories.
Life can happen just so fast, and we have to be so careful of where we are and what we do.
The president has been very clear. We will not allow Iran to have and possess a nuclear weapon.
D.C. has 4,000 immigrants. We have that many almost every day. But the magnitude that we're experiencing is multiples of at least hundreds and maybe thousands.
On Hunter Biden, Director Wray You'll have to explain to the committee and to the country how you'll manage this mess.
All that and more right here on National Report. In term, so how will Trump-endorsed candidates play in the general? Let's focus in on Michigan, where Trump-backed congressional candidate John Gibbs defeated incumbent Representative Peter Baier in Michigan's 3rd Congressional District GOP primary. Representative Baier was one of 10 Republicans who had voted to impeach Trump following the January 6th Capitol attack. John Gibbs joins us now on National Report. Welcome, sir. Thanks so much for coming on today. Let me ask you, now that it's been several days since the results have come in, what do you think it was about your campaign that sealed the deal with voters?
We were out there. We were actually meeting people. We visited every single city and township in this congressional district. And when people can look you in the eyes, look you in their face, size you up, and just get to talk to you in person, that is worth gold. And it can overcome huge monetary deficits that your opponent might be spending against you. So we think that made the big difference. Also prayer. We had a very organized prayer team that was lifting us up every single day. That moves mountains, we know. So we were just working hard, getting out in the district, and that made the difference. We also know that Peter Baier voted to impeach Trump only several days after he got into office, and I'm endorsed by President Trump and Dr. Ben Carlson because they are so respected for the great work they've both done. That endorsement does mean a lot to people, so that helped as well. And then my own personal story and background, I think, of where God has brought me in my life is compelling, and I think all three of those combined seal the deal. Yeah, Republican voters in Michigan wanted to see you represent them in the 3rd District here. Let me ask you, though, about maybe some of the challenges your campaign faced as you headed towards the primaries here. That being the DCC and their fundraising efforts, they wanted you to win. In fact, they were putting your advertisements, putting money towards advertisements supporting you, under the impression that they thought you would be an easier target come November, where you will be facing Hillary Clinton, the Democrat, who won the primary there. What do you think about that? What do you think about their efforts to choose you as the weaker candidate? Well, first of all, we were ahead in all polls going back to February, so I knew we were going to win this. There was not a single poll done that showed Peter Baier ahead. Every single poll that was done by them, by us, or by third parties showed me as being ahead. So regardless of what the Democrats did or did not do, we were going to win this anyway. I don't know what their thinking is or what their deliberations are, but if they think that I'll be easier to beat in the general, that's absolute nonsense. I think that they're going to have a real challenge on their hands. This district, according to Cook's partisan voting index, which is the most accurate one out there, is probably D+1. But in a year like this, where you have Joe Biden's disastrous policies, whether it comes to gas prices, inflation, disaster in Ukraine, disaster in Afghanistan, we're now in a recession. Everything he touches really just goes straight downhill. So I think that there's going to be a huge number of those independents who might have voted for Biden in 2020. They're going to look at those actual results, especially the ones that impact their pocketbook, and they're going to say, we're not going to try that again. Kind of like putting your hand on a hot stove. They're not going to do it again, and they'll come back home. So I think we're going to do very well in November. Well, you definitely learn from the hot stove analogy there. And you mentioned the economy, of course, being a top of mind for voters, that issue there. Let me ask you statewide, though, about Michigan and some other candidates we were watching in the race. Tudor Dixon, also a Trump-backed candidate, now will face Gretchen Whitmer in the governor's race. Tell me about what you're watching with her campaign, and tell me about the impact of Trump's endorsement in your state. Well, the Trump endorsement overall does make a big difference, I think, in every state, and that includes Michigan as well. If you go back and look at history, whether it's George W. Bush, John McCain, Mitt Romney, they lost by massive margins when they ran for president in the state of Michigan. Trump did not. Trump won in the state of Michigan. So he's got something about him that does appeal to our people here in Michigan. So his endorsement does mean a lot. As far as the governor's race, yeah, I think the endorsement means a lot there, too. I've been focused on my own race, so I haven't been spending a whole lot of time on that. But I do really hope that Tudor wins and we can get new leadership in the governor's seat, because we certainly need it. All right, and we'll be watching, of course, your own race to Congress there. John Gibbs taking the time and joining us this morning. We do appreciate it, John. Thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate it. You're welcome.
We'll take you back to that Judiciary Committee.
Products, including ones that reference symbols, which we do across a wide variety of contexts. We usually take great pains to put caveats and warnings in the document that make clear.
Okay, what you're
that a
watching right
symbol
now,
alone
Christopher
is not
Wray
considered
responding
evidence
there,
of
the
violent
Senate Judiciary
extremism,
Committee
and-
hearing.
Well, but Director
He
Wray,
is
you don't
responding to
include
Senator
things
Ted
like
Cruz. Let's listen in
Antifa,
real
you don't
quick.
include things like Black Lives Matter. Instead, you identify patriotic Americans as suspects. And I would note there's a pattern of this. As you're aware, the National Association of School Boards asked the Attorney General to investigate parents as domestic terrorists under the Patriot Act. Now, it did so because it was upset about moms and dads coming to school boards and disagreeing with the policies of those schools. 5 days after that letter, the Attorney General sent a memo to you directing the FBI to target parents for investigation. Since that time, the National Association of School Boards has apologized for the letter because it was so indefensible, but that hasn't stopped the FBI. In fact, you've created a specific threat tag directed at parents. So let me ask you, how many moms and dads who have spoken up at school boards has the FBI interviewed or investigated since the memo from the Attorney General?
Well, first off, I'll say I'm not aware of any. But second, let me address the issue.
You're not aware of any? Like the House of Representatives has written you and asked you about it.
If you would let me.
So please
finish,
answer.
Please. Let me say to you and to this committee the same thing I said to every FBI field office after I read the memo, which was that the FBI is not going to be in the business of investigating speech or policing speech at school board meetings or anywhere else, and that we're not about to start now, that threats of violence, that's a different matter altogether, and there we will work with our state local partners as we always have.
So Director Ray, our time is, do you know how many parents you have interviewed or investigated since that memo?
I am aware that we have had a small number of assessments, which is less than an investigation, and a few full investigations. Hold on. Let me finish.
I'm asking a question. Our time is limited.
I don't know the number, but that not necessarily. But let me finish. That are not necessarily of parents. We have individuals who have made threats against a variety of people. Sometimes school board officials, sometimes other people as well.
Director Ray, I will point out the House of Representatives has sent you oversight letters detailing dozens of investigations under a threat tag directed at parents, moms and dads who G-men have come in because they spoke out against mask mandates or vaccine mandates or critical race theory, and suddenly the G-men show up. And this was after the Attorney General claimed it wasn't happening. And so the pattern, sadly, we've seen, you say you don't know how many there are. The follow-up will be, I'll send you a letter, and you'll send back a letter that says I refuse to answer it. Let me give another example. Recently, there was the case against individuals charged with kidnapping and murdering Governor Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan. That case ended up an absolute debacle where the 4 people who went to trial, 2 of them were acquitted, 2 received mistrials. None of them were convicted on even a single charge, and the basis of the defense was entrapment, that the FBI, that paid enforcements for the FBI, had suggested and had incited the conduct. Let me ask you, how many FBI agents were disciplined or reprimanded after that disastrous case and the misconduct that led to every defendant being acquitted or having a mistrial on every charge?
Senator, I can't comment on a personnel matter. I can tell you that that case, as I understand it, is now pending a retrial, as I understand it.
Well, the special agent in charge of that case has now been sent to D.C., to the Washington, D.C. office, and now leads the investigation regarding January 6th. Is that correct?
That doesn't sound right to me.
That does not sound right. The name of the individual is Stephen D'Antuono. It was run out of the FBI Detroit field office. And by the way, I will point out that the lead investigator, Special Agent Track, are you aware that he was apparently fired for allegedly beating his wife after coming home from a swingers party, and he'd made multiple derogatory political posts about President Trump showing political bias? Are you aware of that?
I am aware of, I think, the incident you're describing and action that was taken about.
Again, that Senate Judiciary Committee hearing there, Christopher Wray in the hot seat. Senators asking a whole team of questions, if you will, on regards to the school board meetings, Larry Nassar, how that was handled, Hunter Biden laptop. This will continue on. The senators will have their time. Want to get to breaking news, though, on the WNBA player, Brittany Griner, who was found guilty on charges of drug possession, drug smuggling. She has been sentenced to 9 years in a Russian prison. That just coming in. The maximum amount for Griner and the penalty for having possession of drugs on her or bringing them over to Russia would have been 9.5 years. So all but short of the maximum. Again, Brittany Griner, the WNBA player that has captured the nation with this story, has been sentenced officially by a Russian judge to 9 years in a Russian prison.
And if we could go back in the timeline again, she's been in detention in Russia for now more than 6 months. Last month, she had pleaded guilty to those drug charges there that, as Sean was pointing out, prosecutors wanted to see her serve 9.5 years, a total of 10 years then. Keep in mind, too, she had testified in an emotional way where she said she never intended to break any Russian laws and she had made an honest mistake. She was rushing to pack her bag, and this was, of course, when it was found through airport security in a Russian airport where she had brought with her cannabis oil, at the time illegal to have in Russian, and now we've learned the sentence for that action, 9 years in Russian prison. A big question, Sean, is what might happen next?
Well, she can appeal. And I believe this is what's being reported as well, is that she'll have 10 days to appeal the sentencing. But this judge clearly, and this court clearly, is not lenient in terms of being asked by the prosecution there, hey, we want 10 years. Well, she got 9, so almost the maximum there. Again, a major story there. You're going to await a response. The president has been responding to this. Obviously, several in the spotlight have been responding to this story. Well, now here it is, the results. 9 years in a Russian prison. Stay with us.
President Donald Trump shared a message on Truth Social regarding Tuesday's primary races. The former president sent this out, saying he ran the entire board. He's, of course, referencing those endorsements that he gave and the results that we got in and brought our viewers when it comes to those primary elections. Joining us now, former New York City Commissioner in the Giuliani and Bloomberg administrations, Brian Anderson, is back with us here on National Report. All right, what do you think of Trump's performance on Tuesday when it comes to those endorsements?
Well, he said it all, right? He ran the table. Despite that most of the other networks aren't covering him or his impact on these elections, Newsmax does, he was exactly correct. It seems like everyone he endorsed did well, and I think that speaks to what his impact is. People are hearing him. People identify with Donald Trump. They hear him. They like the way he talks.
Also looking at Trump taking a shot at one of the cable news networks on his Truth Social account, too. Brian, responding to an article by Dave Rubin claiming liberal media needs Trump to run in 2024. Desperately need Trump to run in 2024. But then it's the bottom, it says, and Fox, which would die without me. Trump calling out Fox News on this one.
You got to love it. And of course he should. They've been ignoring him. It's been 100 days that he hasn't been on. They covered Pence's speech and not his. You can see that it's a deliberate effort. So, and with Donald Trump's ego, of course, you just don't play that game. And he's given it right back to them, which is wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Again, we'll have to wait and see what Trump decides to do when it comes to 2024. You'd think all the major networks would be focused in on that, and for their viewership, too, might be interested. Brian Anderson joining us.